Hello, audience. Welcome to Business Miles, your front row seat to the untold stories of travel. I am Anish, your navigator and host for today. Before I reveal my guest for today, let me ask you a question. How many countries have you traveled to? 5, 10, 20 if you're lucky. Well, my guest for today has traveled to over 120 countries. That kind of journey doesn't just make you a traveler, it makes you a storyteller. I'm talking about my guest, Michaela Guzy, probably the only person I know who can make jet lag sound interesting. Michaela has made it her mission to show the world what safe, authentic, and empowering travel can look like. Michaela, welcome to Business Miles. It's a pleasure to have you here.
The honor's all mine. Thank you very much, Anish.
First up, tell our audience who Michaela Guzy is, and tell them about your journey as well.
Sure. I think it's important to note I've owned my own travel content house since since March of 2012. But before that, I was in travel publishing. So I've been in the travel industry for a very long time, and I've worked at Condé Nast, and I helped launch Town and Country Travel and Weddings. But then I also was at Travel and Leisure, and then I was on the corporate team for American Express. And so my brands were Travel and Leisure, Departures, Food and Wine, and Executive Travel. Plus, I was the liaison to Time Inc. Publishing. And I think it's relevant because I got to know the travel industry and I fell in love with it, at all sides of it. And I myself was a corporate road warrior. So in corporate America, I was overseeing our international offices as well as our international editions. And so I was on the road 3 weeks a month, like it was bananas. And there were a number of things going on for me. There's certainly the 2008 crisis. And I just knew that travel, not just travel, publishing was changing. And so I wanted to be a part of the solution of figuring out the new media landscape and what that meant. And then from an editorial perspective, I've always thought the thing that moves me about traveling is meeting new people. And so I started my company, Oh, the People You Meet, focusing on people, places, and purposes in 2012. It's been a wild ride. We've navigated a few landmines, most certainly the pandemic during that time. Yeah. And I've, since June of 2020, I have been houseless, not homeless, filming my show, Sleeping Around Safely. So I've been living in luxury hotels, cruise lines, safari tents, all over the world. And I would say, other than what's my favorite place I've ever traveled to, then the next question is undoubtedly, how do I pack? So I don't know if you want to get into those two, but those are most certainly the most common questions I'm asked.
No wonder. You've amassed a wealth of knowledge, through your entire professional journey, and especially since you started, your own company. Let's dive a little bit into your business travel journeys. Right now, you've traveled to 120 countries. I'm sure you've met other business travelers as well. What are the challenges that are different, compared to leisure travel? Right? What have you heard from them? What have you learned from your own experiences?
I mean, technically, I consider myself a business traveler because I'm traveling literally permanently for over 5 years. And most of the time, other than I actually was just in Chicago, I met my new little nephew. He's 2 weeks old. But other than that, like I'm usually on the road exclusively. Thank you. I'm very excited. He's adorable. I'm usually on the road for work. I might be going to a conference to speak at the conference or attend as media. I might be going to film our new show in a destination like Portugal or Zambia. And each destination is totally different and has its own set of challenges for getting around. Even when I was in corporate America, again, I was traveling again, mostly for business. But I always called it leisure because it was cheaper for the company to have me if I was already on the road just to stay on the
Stay
road
there.
instead of
Yeah.
coming all the way back to New York where I lived at the time. And so I would have to throw in a weekend in Europe or in the Middle East or wherever the heck I was. And so I got really good at traveling on my own and realizing that as long as I had Wi-Fi at my hotel, like I could work from anywhere, and that I could manage remote teams of people from all over the world. Again, as long as I had Wi Fi, I was working in all the different time zones and continue to do so. But in 2012, those were some major decisions that I factored into starting my own company. I was like, I don't need actual employees. I'm happy to have
Right.
remote workers. I'm happy to have people that own their own businesses. In fact, I don't want to deal with managing the HR process. Like, I want them to be an independent entity and like
Right.
I pay them when the job gets done. And that way we can all be adults. And so that was just something that I had always seen as a positive when I worked with my remote offices in publishing. And that was kind of a traditional thing that most of the publishing houses had adapted anyway, with at least remote offices. So but it's great because I've gotten to work with people from all over the world and different cultures. Um, Coming up at the end of this month, I'm speaking at a conference in Las Vegas. It's the first ever international media marketplace luxury summit. But then I go straight from there to ILTM North America in the Bahamas. And then I have a film festival that we're winning in Croatia. And then
Wow.
I think we're filming in Croatia. And then I go directly from there to Dubai, where I'm moderating a conference at the Future of Hospitality Summit. And then I'm hopefully going to Alula in Saudi Arabia, which would be a little press trip before a new conference that's taking place in Saudi Arabia. And then I fly to speak at a conference in Ethiopia called the Most Traveled People Conference, where these people have been to every country in the world, all 193. Plus, some of them have actually done it twice. And I've been to
Wow.
121 because I like to throw out there that every new country is a big deal. And Colombia, I went for a conference as well, a new travel conference down there called Epica. Um, I knew I was going to love Colombia, but Colombia was next level. And when I'm going there, I'm looking for how someone could have a great vacation, and that's the focus that I'm taking. But people come to me. I also contribute to Insider Travel Report, and that is a travel trade publication. All the travel industry subscribe to it. 128,000 travel advisors across North America. So in that case, the conversations that I'm having during interviews, like I know that the advisors need to know the down and dirty about every hotel. Like, how many keys does it have? Does it have, does it have late check-in, late check-out? Or like, is the restaurant been redone? Is the spa that, all these types of things that maybe a consumer be a little too much for a consumer, like the travel advisor needs to know that information. And so, I kind of wear a lot of different hats when I go into these trips and try to make sure that I'm getting as much information for all the different outlets that I contribute to.
So that's great, and you've hit upon a very interesting part of business travel. Um, you know, the the hotel part of business travel, and as you mentioned, right, it's a part that affects your overall business travel experience quite a bit. A
Mm.
hotel undergoing renovation, probably not a good choice for a business traveler, right?
No.
Because you could do without the noise of renovation. I know most
I mean,
hotels
by the
do
way,
renovate it.
even as a consumer, you don't want that either. I was in
Yeah.
Porto, Portugal, and I got this good deal in a great hotel, and I was like, huh. And I didn't even look into it. I booked it. It was only for a night. And oh my God, the drilling outside of I was like, I felt
Oh,
insane. I was like, get me out of here. I couldn't
I
even do a
can get
conference
that.
call from my room. It was so loud. It was so loud. No, so to your point, like for business travel, like especially if I'm like in and out, like I'm a little bit particular. Like if it's a short haul flight and I have a tight connection or something, I want to be as close to the front of the plane in the aisle that I can just bust a move off the plane. But if it's a long haul flight and it's overnight, then yes, I do not want someone crawling over me all night. I want to have the window where I can lean against it. I don't want anyone disturbing my already fragmented sleep. because as
Right.
you said, jet lag is a very real thing in my life. And I'm an insomniac to begin with anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, like little tips I always say, like always going back to packing is, back in corporate America days, I had like a uniform. Like I had either a black, a navy, a gray kind of color scheme. I could go for 3 weeks abroad in a carry-on. And I took such joy and pride in that. And then I got to filming and being in front of camera, and you have to wear colors and be bright, and like you're not really supposed to repeat things. And I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? This has like totally changed the name of the game for me. But you navigate.
You remind me of my days as a consultant, and I
Mm.
lived on the black, navy, and gray. And
Yes.
I think we need to do another podcast just to, get packing tips from you, right? I have never been able to fit all my clothes in a carry-on, so I'm amazed that
Oh,
you're
and
able to
men
do
have it
that.
so much easier. You guys can just wear like one suit and throw in a couple different shirts and ties, and you got all these different looks. We don't get to do that. So,
I definitely get that. So, going back to the challenges of business travel, when it
mm-mm.
comes to flight travel, what were your must-haves, or what were the things that you were trying to avoid
For flying
for
specifically.
flying? Yes, yes.
So, I mean, again, like some things that I do to make my life easier. And again, it depends. Like, am I doing a consulting project? Because then they might have an airline that they want me to fly. Um, and or is it something that I'm tacking on to something I'm doing? But when you can, obviously, it's great to stick within an alliance because you'll get to have all the special perks. Like you can use the lounge. You can have, like right now, I have platinum on United, and then that gives me gold across Star Alliance. And that's one of the widest networks, right? So
Yeah.
for me, that's great because I can get to the airport and like cut it really close. I always check in advance. Um, and like right now, I can check up to 3 bags. I only have 2 check-in bags, but I have camera gear with me.
Right,
So I
right.
like run. I can just throw right at like the premier counter. I also in the US, I have TSA pre-check, but I also have the retina scan. So if I'm just using US domestic or like leaving from the US, I get to go in a separate line. I don't even have to show them my ID anymore.
Right,
So it like
right.
makes all the difference in the world because I can just like literally roll in and then I roll into the lounge. I have a quick coffee or breakfast or whatever time of day it is. I refill my water bottle. I always bring a refillable water bottle with electrolytes. And then I can like run onto the plane, board first. I always bring 3 days of clothes in my carry on. Goodness forbid your luggage is lost. I put air tags in absolutely everything, on keys in every suitcase in your laptop case. Like I know how to track everything in my life on my Find My app on my Apple phone.
Right.
So those little tips, and actually, like when Lufthansa lost my luggage last summer, I was like, "Hey guys, my bag is in Dusseldorf. It's right near
Wow.
the KFC. Could you put it on the plane?" And do you know, I emailed them. I told the guy at the airport. I emailed them again. I wrote their customer service for 3 days. They still like couldn't get it together. And finally, I screen grabbed my AirTag and I posted on social media. And I was like, Lufthansa, I don't know what the problem is. My bag is right here. Just go get it. And the social media manager had it to me in 12 hours. And I was like,
Wow.
yes, use social media to shame them if they can't get it together.
That's a wonderful tip, and I think your air tags tip is a very interesting one. It has happened to me, curiously on Lufthansa as well, where
Okay.
they lost my bag in Munich, and I was traveling to Austria at the time. So,
Mm,
and I had to be in Austria the same evening. So
bummer.
my luggage was somewhere in Germany, and I was in Austria, and I'm like, God, I don't
But
even
did
know.
you carry on some clothes, hopefully?
No. So, I
Okay, so
remember going
always,
shopping.
always your carry. Always
Yeah,
in your carry-on. Have I at least like for the next day or two, like especially if you know, like for me, if I have a big TV presentation or if you know you have a big
yeah,
meeting or something, um, for me as well, like even in corporate America, I'd have these flights where I'd be flying from New York to Dubai, and then you land, and of course, all you want to do is like not talk to anyone, go have a shower and have a coffee. And you want your hotel to have your room ready with the least amount of communication that you have so you can just like go shower and decompress and get yourself together. Well, in my case, even when I was in corporate America, even before I was filming and influencing and doing whatever I do, like the hotel partners were so excited that, you know, Town and Country or Travel and Leisure was coming to their hotel. So like the general manager would come and greet me, and you're like, oh man, like I just felt, and they're like, come have a champagne. I'm like, that is not what I need right now. Like,
yeah,
definitely no alcohol. Some caffeine would be great, but also you're
yeah,
like, you feel gross. So one of the first interviews I ever gave after starting my company, I call it, hopefully this isn't culturally insensitive. My little Irish Grammy always used to call it a whore's bath. And so that was like a top and tails. Like you'd have a little like baby wipe, a little baby
yeah,
powder in your hair, brush your teeth, a little perfume, deodorant. Like, you know, it's not perfect, but it makes you feel a little better after that long, crusty flight. So I have what I call my horse kit for the plane. And again, it has that handy wipes, baby powder, some dry shampoo or something, deodorant, perfume, something that just makes you feel a little more put
yeah,
together. For women or men, I always say wear something that you're comfortable in, especially if they don't give you pajamas, if you're not flying business or whatever. Wear something that's comfortable, but then go do your little top and tails before you land, like an hour before, after you've had like your wake up coffee and your OJ. And then you'll feel so much better after you brush your teeth and put on deodorant. And then bring a fresh shirt, put on a fresh shirt, and wear a jacket, like a blazer or a jacket on a plane. Wear some kind of hat. You look so much more put together if you have a jacket and a hat on of any kind. You just look like you have it together. And if you have greasy hair, it's hiding it, you know?
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. I haven't tried the hat, but I'll definitely try it on my next travel.
Well, men again
Uh,
have it a little easier than us ladies, but
So, that's the other point I wanted to speak about. When it comes to travel, women always have it harder, right? In general, right? It's tougher, it's less safe. There are several challenges, right? In your experience, what are some unique to women challenges, and are there some technologies and tips that can help a woman traveler get around
mm.
these challenges?
Well, one, there's companies that do great things and like acknowledge that women travelers have a different set of consideration points. And like Taj, for example, the Indian luxury hotel company, they have wonderful programs for women, and some of them even have women only floors. Um, I've never been that threatened that I feel that I need to be on a women only floor. Um, I travel the world pretty much solo all the time. And I think it's a matter of using your head. And I will say, I'll caveat, I grew up with a super paranoid father. My dad was the head of homicide for St. Louis, Missouri. So, rightly so, given what he saw. So, he could never even understand how I could just like go out by myself and travel the world. He was scared to like leave the neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it's funny that I'm not paranoid because I definitely came from that. Um, I think you need to use your head though. And like one of my first business trips when I was at American Express was to go see our office in Mexico City. And everybody was like, oh my God, you're going to Mexico City by yourself. And my dad was like, if you get kidnapped, I'm like, kidnapped? And I was like, what are we talking about? This is craziness. Anyway, the first time I arrived, my sales rep came and met me. And as I came out of, the luggage area in customs, he was standing there with a sign. And then we went with his driver and they dropped me to the hotel. And I was staying in a very nice area of Mexico City at a luxury hotel. And then I would go there multiple times over the year for the next 5 years. And I was like, you don't need to pick me up at the airport. I'm good. Like, I got this. And I would call a driver, or I'd have the hotel arrange a driver for me. And they just stand there with a sign, you again, use your head. Actually, certain parts of Mexico City, people were like, don't walk around. And I was like, no, during the day, it's fine. Like, I'm
Right.
fine in Condesa, Reforma, Polanco. But, at night, especially if you've had some cocktails, like, have the restaurant or the hotel call you a taxi or an Uber or whatever, and then you just have your safe transport back to where you're going. So, that's a simple, stupid, dumb tip that I have. Um, I actually love eating at hotel bars and stuff. So especially when I'm traveling by myself, I go grab my laptop, and I always choose a hotel based on, do they have a good communal vibe that I can go sit down and
Right.
like do business meetings? Is it the type of hotel that my partner might want to come meet me at? Because I'm also trying to minimize my running around places I don't know, just for meetings. So I try to pick a cool hotel where people want to come to, and it's a good place to entertain from as well. And if they have a cool lobby bar vibe that I can sit there from coffee to cocktail and work and hang out. The other thing that you had brought up is things like, is the hotel under construction? I always say I don't understand why people don't use travel advisors. Like, travel advisors are literally experts in this. Like, I meet so many of them in all the conferences that I go to, and this is literally their job to know,
Yep.
like, the people that are running the hotel. In, let's say, part of the hotel is under construction, but the other part's just fine. Like, they're going to know that, and they're going to know to put you in that room. And so they'll work with their contacts there to be like your advocate at the hotel. And then you'll probably also get a lot of special attention, like special greetings or later early check-in or check-out, or, maybe
Yep.
you'll even get a spa or a food credit. And usually travel advisors don't cost anything. They make their money on the booking. So, and it's a net and a gross rate. So you're never going to get the net rate on your own as a consumer anyway. So to me, it's just like an absolute no brainer. And then also, if something like goes wrong, like let's say you miss your connection, you're stuck in
They're
the
all good.
air.
They're good.
Well, this
Yeah.
person can be on the phone, like doing the thing for you and like have a
Right.
solution for you by the time you land. So like, why wouldn't you use this person? I'm moderating a solo female travel panel at the Most Traveled People conference in Ethiopia in November. And we have three women from around the world, a woman from the Philippines, a Kuwaiti woman, and an American woman, who all achieved 193. And so we were talking specifically about this safety thing,
Hmm.
and it was very interesting because the safety concerns didn't apply to all women. In fact, it was very regionalized. And so the Kuwaiti woman, like, she had kind of bias because of where she was from. And so
Right.
people would kind of like look at her and judge her, but not in like the GCC, not in the Middle East, because she could speak to them in their local
Yeah.
language. And I was like, that's interesting because it's usually when I go to a place where I very obviously am not from,
Hmm.
like the Middle East. And like I started traveling there in 2007, like I definitely raised some eyebrows. But I like little things, like I try to understand a little bit about the culture before I go. I certainly, is it okay to shake hands? How do you
Right.
greet someone? Is it more of a head nod? How to dress, etc. But that first time that I was in Dubai, a girlfriend of mine, and this was like 2007, a girlfriend of mine had moved there from New York about a year before. And so I called her and I had a real in-depth conversation with her beforehand about how to dress,
Right.
how to greet people, and how, like, if
Hmm.
especially if I'm meeting a local person, like what was respectful. And but she also taught me a fun like slang words and whatnot. And she's like, if someone's negotiating you really hard, and this happened to us like in a market, like we had gone to a market, and
Right.
I was like, oh, that's cute. And the guy like quoted me some price, and she was like, no halas. And like, we walk out and I'm like, oh, Chrissy, I just did the math, the conversion. Like it's fine. I don't care. And she's like, no, that's marked up like 7 times. So like 3 or 4 times we walk in and out of this stall. And I'm like, Chrissy, I don't care. I'll just pay it. Like it's ridiculous. I'm so embarrassed. And she's like, this is the culture. You don't even understand. Before I knew it, she got it down 7 times. And she's like,
Wow.
Mi Habibi. And I was like, what is going on? And so I couldn't obviously deploy these tactics the first time I was meeting someone. But after I had like met the person and then we had a call and then we were in our second meeting, they were kind of playing a little bit of a negotiation game with me. And I just looked at him and I was like, Mi Habibi, no halas. And he burst out laughing because he was not expecting that from the blonde white woman from America. And he was like, okay, we're going to do this deal together. And it was so funny because I understood enough about the culture at the time to at least show a little bit of local understanding and flair. And we have been friends and business colleagues ever since. So,
Got it. No, this is a very interesting point. Learn the place that you're traveling to. You know,
mm.
would you say this applies even when a person's traveling within the states?
Oh, sure. I
Have you
mean,
tried?
I think like a huge misconception is, we are the United States of America. There's all kinds of sentiments that's happening around that right now. But I grew up in the Midwest, and the Midwest tends to be probably a little more conservative, um, but very polite, like very
Yeah,
polite. And like if someone's really pushy or something, like this would not go over well with a Midwesterner. And also, if you betray a Midwesterner's loyalty, you are done. But they would never be, even if you betray their loyalty, they would just be very cold and civil to you.
yeah,
But it would be like a stone wall, and you're not getting past that ever again. Like you're done. But then I went to school in the South, and they're very conservative. And again, I'm talking in generalizations. There's
right,
liberal people
right,
there, there's whatever, but like generally, very
yeah,
conservative in the South. And but the difference is they'll be nice as pie to your face, but behind the back, they're like, you're never getting in here. This is absolutely not happening. Whereas, like, if you're in New York, where I lived for 21 years, you will know exactly where you stand. They will be flat out, straightforward, and in your face. And some people find that super aggressive. And I'm like, actually, I prefer that of all the ways because you at least know where you stand. Like,
right.
there's no messing around with it. You're just like, okay, well, all right. But you can even ask a New Yorker, like someone said, oh, New York is so aggressive. I'm like, no, I promise you, if you were lost in New York City and you stopped a perfect stranger on the street and said, I need help, they would stop what they were doing and they would walk you to where you needed to go. Like, New Yorkers are actually quite kind, but they're very busy. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
people that don't know what's going on and blocking their way from getting to where they need to go. But if you needed help, any New Yorker would stop and help you.
yeah. I've
So,
experienced that a
like,
few times myself.
yeah, like, so to answer your question more directly, it's within the United, we're so big and people forget that even though we're unified kind of by the same language, we have a lot of other people here who speak many different languages. Um, but we're unified by a common currency, a common federal government, and
Yeah,
a common language. However, not everyone speaks that language. Um, I don't know what to say about the state of our economy and our government, but every state has their own government, and it actually is
yeah,
quite different. And it's quite different by state, and it's quite different by region. Um, and I think it is a strange time in the U.S. I think depending on who you are and where you came from, like, you should exercise some caution. I mean, again, anywhere.
common
Um,
sense. Yeah,
yeah, always
yeah,
context. And if you don't know a place, like don't go wandering around by yourself in dark alleys at night,
yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. You know, let me throw another question at you.
Mm.
You've traveled so extensively, 120 countries, right? And you've mastered travel many times over, right? Where does the process of travel break down? whether you're traveling for business or leisure. And
Um,
what simple changes or shifts could one do to travel more comfortably and worry free?
I do think most people get pretty stressed out at airports. Sometimes to me, I've had, I feel like pretty much every crazy scenario you could possibly imagine. And most of the time, it's out of your control. So download some sound baths or meditations or hypnoses or whatever. And when the stress and the chaos is going on around you, like this summer, it was the craziest day. We're trying to get out of LA. Our flight taxi, it was late. Our flight taxi's out to the runway and the power goes off. We have to get towed back to the airport. People are freaking out. It's not going to change anything. Just sit down and just relax. Like, what are you going to do? Like, literally, you
Yeah.
freaking out is going to do nothing. All it's doing is getting everyone else all more anxious. We eventually did get off okay. And, like, some people miss their connections. I then went to run to catch my connection, and then my flight got boarded, deplaned, and I ended up spending the night somewhere outside of Newark, New Jersey. But again, like, and then I got to my business hotel and they didn't have towels. And I was like, what? Like they gave me two washcloths and it was a Wyndham. Like it wasn't like some like mom and pop shop. I was like, okay, this operation is totally jacked. But I guess like not freaking out in these scenarios because it's not going to change the scenario.
Yeah.
Um, is a really good idea. And again, I do play sound baths and like just chill music and I just have it in my ear with my little AirPod and like while the chaos is happening, I'm like do do do. Um, that is why
I,
it's really nice to
in
go
those
ahead.
moments, sometimes I wish, airport food was better,
Oh yeah. Well, oh my God.
or
I
coffee was
actually
better.
I went during the one that I was just telling you about. Because we were supposed to be taking off, taking off, taking off, I never left the gate because we were supposed to take
Yeah.
off, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise I could have gone to the United Lounge where I have access and at least had some food and a drink and it would have been free. But instead, I stayed at the restaurant that was right across from my gate. I had a green salad, which was only lettuce and it was wilty and disgusting. And I had two glasses of wine and it was 98 US dollars.
Wow.
It's insulting. You know what though? United didn't reimburse me for my wine, but they did reimburse me for the wilty salad, and they did it in under 48 hours. So United has actually really stepped up their A game, and within 48 hours now, they have reimbursed me like two different times this summer. So, and that's not even just if you have loyalty with them. Like
Yeah.
that's just United is actually really stepped up their
Very
A game.
customer centric. Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, and I have to say, other airlines from like last summer, they took like 3 months, and I was like, "Come on, man! Like, let's get it together." And it was like an arduous process with lots of paperwork and receipts. United, I uploaded online or in my app, and it was done in 48 hours. So, like, I really think they are like the front runner in customer service at the moment. But having loyalty with an airline is huge. Again, it saves you a lot of hassle and headache at the airport, especially if you're stressed out or you're running late. Like you get to board early, you get to check in early, you get to drop your bags
Yeah.
off, you get to bring extra weight on the plane. Like it's all the things. You can bring more in your carry on and like, because they're going to have
Yeah.
room because you're getting on first, not in the group
Yeah.
six. So those little things. I wouldn't say I'm loyal to a hotel chain because part of my job is really to know all the different aspects of hotels. But because I'm in the travel industry, similar to travel advisors, I'm going and I'm meeting all the hotel companies. So if something's going wrong, I probably know someone that works at the hotel that I can be like, help. So those again,
Right.
having the travel advisor and the personal connection is another, I think, really huge deal. Um, I usually find it's in the transfers of getting to and from a place, doing your homework before you go, researching, be it cultural differences, but also just understanding. like the hotel layout. Like if you're traveling with a kid, like you should contact them beforehand, you or your travel advisor, to make sure they have what you need. Um, for me, like little things like having a sauna, like, oh my gosh, the raffles in Istanbul. I had to fly to Sierra Leone a bunch a few years ago, and we were filming there. And there is no good way to get from the United States to Sierra Leone.
Right.
And so one of my main routes was through Istanbul with like a 12-hour layover and then on to Sierra Leone. That's pretty brutal. However, Turkey has a great new airport in Istanbul, and
Yeah.
then Turkish has an amazing lounge. The Raffles Hotel have this package where they will come literally pick you up off the plane. Like they're standing there with a sign. So I brought my little carry-on and my little horse kit, and I had 3 days of carry-on with me. My bags were already checked through to my final destination. I get in a golf cart. Off we go. They take me to customs. I don't even get off the golf cart. They give my passport to somebody who waves me on. Off we go. I walk right out of the airport with only my carry on and into a beautiful car to go to the Raffles Hotel in Istanbul, where they had me going down to a hammam treatment, like a half hour to help stave off jet lag. Then I showered and changed in the spa, and then they had a suite waiting for me where they set up this immaculate Turkish breakfast for me with like more food than 18 people could eat. It was crazy. But they had coffee, and I just got to sit there and like, I'm watching like the sunrise over Istanbul from this beautiful suite. I get myself together. Then they send their driver with me, drop me off to meet a friend who took me on a walking tour around Istanbul. We end having lunch at her favorite restaurant in Istanbul. The driver from the hotel comes and picks me up with my carry on, brings me back to the airport. I go through security, but kind of like I didn't have to wait in any line. We go, they flash me back at the customs, and I'm in the lounge in under 20 minutes of arriving at the airport, 2 hours before my flight.
Yeah.
It it was
Amazing.
amazing. And so they offered
Yeah.
this as a service, and I know they also have the raffles also have this in Doha. So if you're a business traveler and you have one of these like god awful connections, it's not the end of the world. There's actually places that you can go, like Istanbul, Doha. There's cool things to see in these cities. So go explore, and like maybe it's a couple $100, but it's probably the best couple $100 you've ever spent before.
You bet, you bet. I was flying through Doha maybe a couple of months ago, right? Wonderful airport. I haven't been outside the airport, but I think I'll try the raffles out.
Oh,
I'll
you
try
should.
out the raffles at Doha.
By the way, the Doha airport and the Qatar Airways terminal, as well as Qatar Airways, wins like every industry award every year for like best airport, best airline. My shows are actually distributed in Qatar Airways, so my Oh the People You Meet series. So
Got it. Now, my final question. Your travel series is a huge hit, and I totally understand from this conversation why. When are you doing a series on business travel?
well, so we have multiple series. So I create Oh, the People You Meet, and that show is focused on people, places, and purposes, and the destination is just the backdrop. It doesn't, it doesn't, I call it a human interest story more than even a travel story. But I could totally see why I get lumped in the travel category. But I wouldn't say that it's geared towards a business travel or a leisure traveler. I would say like my dad who hated
People and their
traveling
stories. Yeah.
my dad watched my Sierra Leone episode featuring Dr. Jane Goodall, and he was like, "Whoa, you almost made me want to go there." And I was like, "Thanks," because I'm connecting you to the people, and the people that I'm introducing you to could be anyone from Dr.
Yeah.
Jane Goodall, but I introduce you to a lot of small business owners, and some of them are travel, but some of them are not. And in fact, that Sierra Leone episode that I'm referring to, it helped get the chimpanzee named the national animal of the country, granting it protected
Wow.
status. It helped with visas on arrival, and it also brought in millions of dollars in microfinancing to small businesses in Sierra Leone and some of the entrepreneurs that we featured. In the case of, and I would say that's true if it's Croatia and it's a more lighthearted story, we're always featuring small businesses. The idea is you're not meeting me when you go to these places. I'm not from there. You're just trusting me to curate the people you should meet when you go. And then
Yeah.
I have the short form show called Sleeping Around Safely, and that was started during the pandemic to show people it was safe to travel. And very quickly, people were like, Michaela, we don't care about the mask and the UV robot. Is the spa open? Do I have to wear a mask at the pool? Can my kid go to the dude ranch? And I was like, oh, got it. People are over this. And so we quickly transitioned to making that show about me being a solo female traveler that lives in luxury hotels, safaris, cruise lines, etc. And so we are just about to release our first episode of season 4 of both of those series this fall on modern luxury. In the past, we've also distributed with Qatar Airways. I'm working with another airline, fingers crossed. And then we have some other distribution we're working on. We actually just started distributing across Southern Africa with People's Planet
Hmm.
and KTLA in Southern California.
Well, I am definitely looking forward to episodes for both of those series. I know this has been a terrific conversation, right? But, before I close, I'd love to
Mhm.
ask you your two favorites. The, you know, one in the United States, the
Okay.
destination or the episode that you loved doing, and second, the rest
Mm.
of the world.
Okay, so it's an episode that I love doing.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're
I'm going to
making it's like
leave
making
that,
me choose
I'm going to
between my favorite children.
Yeah, yeah, I know. You've been to so many wonderful places. I'm sure
um,
you have one that stands out always.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I haven't had the opportunity to film as much in the United States as I'd like to. I don't really know why that is, but what can you do? So domestically, I would say we filmed from Seattle to Alaska. And so we filmed Sleeping Around Safely in Seattle on board and then in Alaska. So we have a 3-part mini series, if
Right.
you will. And then we have a whole Oh, the People You Meet episode where we had sailed with Norwegian Cruise Line. And it was the first cruise back from the pandemic. So it was a really special episode for me and very powerful.
Hmm.
And I'd always wanted to go to Alaska, and I feel like I only scratched the surface there. But taking a cruise was a really nice way to see a place. To me, it gave me a taste of the places I want to go back to and the people that I
Right.
want to meet. And I guess in keeping with that theme, we just filmed the first episodes of season 4. So we started in Barcelona, and we're releasing our first episode, Sleeping Around Safely in Barcelona at the El Palace Hotel, which is amazing. It's the original Ritz. And that should air next week, which we're super excited
Right.
about. And then we'll have a Sleeping Around Safely on board the new cruise line Explorer Journeys, which is next level. It's like you're sailing on a really big yacht that's pretty fabulous. And because it's smaller than other big cruise ships, you
Yeah.
get into smaller ports of call. Also, they're going after markets, like younger markets of people that can work from anywhere, and they have the strongest Wi-Fi at sea. So check that out. And their suites are pretty fabulous. So if you're going to have to work from somewhere, not so bad, right?
Yeah.
And
That
then
definitely
we'll
doesn't
end
sound
in
that bad.
Portugal.
Yeah.
No, we'll end in Portugal. And then, only because from there I flew to go to a few conferences in Africa. I ended up taking 2 of my film students. I do that every year where I mentor young film students in Southern Africa. And I had 2 young men from Zambia who had never been on planes, they had never been on safari, they had never been on boats, they had never been to Victoria Falls. And we just, to watch the wonder of what we were filming through their eyes was just, uh, I don't know,
Amazing.
it made me fall in love with Africa and what I do all over again. So I'm always about empowering next gen wherever we can.
That's a great mission, and I am 100% sure I have my watch list lined up for the next 3 months. Michaela, once again, thank you for being my guest here today. Um, I can't, I find it hard to express how many different things I've picked up from this conversation. I'm sure my listeners also will find many, many useful tips from all of your travels. I will definitely hit you up on the episode on how to pack. Um, but once again, thanks a
We
bunch
just launched a
for
new
taking time.
packing guide, so let me know. And for your followers and audience, I'm always posting fun tips and kind of fun behind the scenes on our Instagram as well, if folks have that.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll leave your Instagram handles link in the comments section when we post the podcast on YouTube. But thanks again, and have a great day. I'm sure you have a busy day ahead in LA, but I hope you have a good day and a good weekend.
Thank you very much. The honor's all mine.
Alrighty, thank you. So, audience, that was our episode. Thanks again for tuning in to listen to Michaela. I'm sure you would have found many, many interesting things. Thank you. Have a good day.